John Rawls was unarguably, I think, the greatest political philosopher of the 20th century. But one of the reasons that I think Rawls's work had the impact that it did is his distinctive approach to philosophical questions, which might superficially sound like he's in accord with the philosophical tradition, but in fact, in some ways departs notably from it. And perhaps the best way to highlight those departures is to contrast Rawls with Plato. Rawls tries to answer the question, what would an ideally just liberal democracy be like? More specifically, what principles of justice would govern an ideally just liberal democracy? Superficially, this may sound like sort of like the question that interested Plato, who also was interested in an ideally just society. And to the extent that Rawls focuses on the ideal, tries to provide us with a sketch of an ideal society, he's like Plato. But the differences soon appear. Plato, quite famously, set philosophy on its course for a very long time by trying to answer the question, what does justice demand? By answering the question, what is justice? And by trying to answer the question, what is justice? By looking for necessary and sufficient conditions for the application of the term. One of the ways in which Rawls departs from the philosophical tradition is in thinking we have to pursue philosophy by some other method than the Platonic method or Socratic method of conceptual analysis. Another way in which he moves beyond the tradition might better be brought out by contrasting him with Descartes. In his Meditations, Descartes famously tried to reconstruct all of human knowledge on the model of geometry, beginning with self-evident truths and accepting only what could be deduced from them. Rawls has a very different way of justifying the answers to philosophical questions. Deductive proofs are fine if you can get them, but quite often we can't. And so Rawls adopted a method of justification which has since become quite influential, called reflective equilibrium. What we have to do, he thinks, is develop a philosophical theory, see what answers it gives us, what principles of justice it yields, but then compare them to the deepest intuitions about morality and justice that we have and see if they fit. If they fit, all well and good. We'll take the theory and its principles to be justified by the fit with our intuitions. If they don't fit, then we have a choice. Do we give up the intuitions or do we give up the principles? By working back and forth and bringing our principles and our intuitions into equilibrium, into reflective equilibrium, we arrive at a justified theory that comports with what we most deeply believe. That method of justification has since proven very influential in philosophy. It's a method that stands in sharp contrast to Descartes' method of justifying his conclusions, just as Rawls's way of identifying principles of justice differs quite sharply from the conceptual analysis of Plato.